maybe this isn't the case for this particular solution, but what I feel like I see often is a solution be created for kind of one specific use case, and then it goes to market, and it's kind of like, no, we could do everything for everybody. But it started to satisfy one relatively small company that has kind of grown over the course of time, and then they start to push it out to the market.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. The debate between what's an add-on versus what's an ERP is not new. The add-ons will never have the traceability requirements that regulated industries such as Med Device and Pharma require. But unfortunately, due to the limited technical background of auditors, they can't distinguish whether a record is traceable inside the system or would it require manual steps to establish the linking. Also, because of the fragile integration between QuickBooks and Sage50, there are likely to be significant data integrity issues. Most QuickBooks add-ons suffer from the same problems, but they all have a tendency to call them an ERP. So where does QT9 stand? In today's episode, we invited a panel of industry experts for a live discussion on LinkedIn to conduct an independent review of QT9 ERP capabilities. We covered many grounds, including their strengths with document management and quality workflow processes, including how it compares with other life sciences-centric ERP systems such as DCOM, BlueLink, and Sage X3. We also covered the weaknesses with their data model and how it will suffer from the same traceability issues as other QuickBooks add-ons such as Katana MRP. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you're joining for the first time, this is part of our industry for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We review one vendor or the solution, and for today we have a very interesting solution. It's QT9. Not sure how many people may have heard about this solution, but there are a lot of different ERP systems. Obviously, this is one of them. So we are going to have a lot of fun discussing that. Before we do that, we are going to start with everybody's intros. I am going to start with my intro. If you don't know me, Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. On that note, I am going to move to Andy first today because I don't have Dave's ticker, and I'm actually going to work on the ticker by the time Andy introduces. Okay, go ahead, Andy.
Thank you, Sam. My name is Andy Pratico. I've been involved in ERP software longer than either of these two gentlemen have been alive. And I've worked all over North America, specifically with manufacturing companies, by the way. And I also have a published book on how to evaluate ERP software. And thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you so much for being here, Andy. And no ERP implementations can be done without any mistakes. So for today, I have done my fair share, but I could fix it soon. So Dave, over to you.
Thanks, Sam. Hey, everybody. My name is Dave Chrysler, and I own an operations consulting business working with leaders in manufacturing and distribution spaces, helping them to systemize their business and improve processes. I've come to you with more than 20 years of various operational leadership roles, which included several ERP implementations. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here, Dave. We missed you in last of couple of shows, I guess. You were out for the spring break, so welcome back.
Thanks.
Of course. And if you are in the audience and joining for the first time, make sure you guys post your questions and comments. We can try to cover them during the show. If we run out of time, we will make sure that you receive your answers. On that note, guys, I am going to start with the quick commentary on the solution, and then we will start on the slide. And Andy, I know you have a little background in this one, so I don't know if you want to touch on this a little bit in terms of what your background was. Do you want me to cover the solution first, or do you want to go first?
Yeah, no, you go ahead, Sam. I mean, I like I said, I did come across this product just recently, and I do have a little bit of insight, but you go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a very similar solution, and I don't know how to position this, but they are going to be primarily in that QuickBooks sort of segment where they are calling themselves as an ERP. The way their data model is going to be very similar to how other QuickBooks add-ons are created. Obviously, everybody is going to name them as ERP because that is the easiest thing to learn. Anybody can learn ERP and call themselves ERP, right?
I'm not going to buy it if it's not called an ERP, Sam.
Exactly.
I don't care what it does, as long as it's called an ERP.
ERP, I'm buying that, right, Andy?
That's right.
Exactly. So in this case also, obviously they are called ERP. And by the way, the most interesting thing about ERP in general, when you look at slightly bigger ERP systems, the way they start, if you are really talking about some of the horizontal sort of solutions, right? They start in targeting the smaller patches. Okay. So if you look at some of the mainstream ERP systems, I think we discussed this point before as well. Acumatica, Sage50, NetSuite, if you look at the newer systems, the cloud native ones, obviously the older ones have started the similar way as well. Typically in the traditional world, ERP did mean sort of the accounting system, okay? But ERP system sort of grew after they had that finance and account foundation. That's how most ERP systems started. Some ERP systems started as the MRP system, and they developed the MRP accounting functionality later on, which was tightly embedded.
And then they called that MRP too.
Well, so MRP, I'm talking about the real ERP. MRP2, I don't know how much real embeddedness they had.
Well, really what it was is that back in the early days, and we're talking about the 60s and the 70s, there was just MRP engines, and that's it. You needed a room, computer the size of a room, to run that MRP calculation. In the 1970s and 80s, they came out with this thing they called MRP2, which included functionality such as financials and APS, advanced planning and scheduling capabilities. And then in the 90s is when they changed the acronym to the ERP, and that's what everyone calls it today. But as you're pointing out, Sam, every software, just accounting systems, call themselves ERP today.
Yeah, and the best way to sort of understand the embeddedness of the data model and the nestiness of the data model. I don't know if nestiness is the right term, but the way I like to define this as, I want to take you guys to a washroom, okay? And you are looking at this bunch of hairs, embedded together. That's how tight the data model is to be of the ERP system. If you look at 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, during those days, we didn't have as much processing power to have that tightly connected data model. That's why they had to separate it out. Okay, even today, if you go to Fortune 50, Fortune 100, they don't have the ERP system that can process the workload of those Fortune 500 organization, and that's why they have to create the best of breed architecture where they are literally separating the processes so that they can perform the workload, the kind of transactions, and the kind of depth it is going to require. So again, here is probably the best example I could provide that. That's how tight the data model is. That's how nasty the data model is in general. But overall, if you look at these ERP systems, the way they do is, obviously they are going to have a lot of things from the operational perspective, but they are not going to have that GL embeddedness. When you look at the GL mapping to your payment term or to your bank account, to your customer, and when you don't have that, then you don't have the tight affiliation of your the GL business rules, the way your transactions are going to be posted in your accounting system. And by the way, it's not just the accounting system that is sort of concern here. You are sort of looking for that financial insight. The more embedded your GLs are going to be, the more traceability you are going to get in terms of finding the real financial insights and the financial control that you are going to get. But most of these smaller systems, even if they map a GL code, sometimes customers are going to say, you know what, I have GL code at the customer level, I have GL code at the item level, I have GL code at the BOM level. So why is Infor so different? Why is SAP so different? Okay, there you are looking at the hierarchy of 500 different business codes at each of the customer and customer class level. That's how deep it gets. And by the way, it's not just the one-to-one mapping of your customer to GL code. It's going to be the business rules, the business hierarchy, and that actually drives how efficient your data entry is going to be. And that data entry is the operational efficiency. And that's what these smaller ERP systems typically miss. So in the case of QT9, obviously, when you look at it from the functional perspective, okay, they are probably going to have every single piece of functionality on the face of this earth, okay, because they are targeting life sciences vertical, okay. For life sciences, you are probably going to need pretty much everything, okay, but obviously they are not going to have the same traceability, same data entry efficiency that the larger ERP systems are going to have. So we are going to touch on all of that, but in general, in the QuickBooks segment, your items are probably not going to be modeled. I think these guys have some modeling, but it's very, very, very lean. The way their items are designed, the way their BOMs are designed, they are not going to have the same traceability that you are going to be going to get from the larger ERP systems. And when I look at the traceability, meaning each of the document as it moves through your business processes are going to have its own life cycle. It's going to have its own state. That's the real difference. Sometimes the smaller ERP systems, what they are going to do is they are going to combine two different states, and and they are not going to have two separate documents for these process steps, and that's why they are not going to have as much traceability. I know it gets very, very, very complex to understand. How the hell?
Well, I mean, just look at the screen you have in front of you, Sam, the bottom right-hand corner. I mean, for most people looking for an ERP, they would scan at the screen and say, yeah, it does everything I need.
Exactly. But this is not the best way.
Look at that. It's everything.
That's not how ERP systems are supposed to work. I mean, if you're looking at only the functional checklist, you can never compare the ERP systems because they all are going to look alike.
And well, the problem with a true ERP, it wouldn't be a list of 30 things like this. It would be a list of 3,000 or 30,000 or 300,000. And it just gets to be too huge, right? But on the surface, the tip of the iceberg, this list looks like it's all inclusive.
Exactly. And once you get into those nuanced scenario, and in my mind, I always look for those one-to-one scenario. The traceability when you are going to look at the one-to-one level. And that's where your operational efficiency is. When you talk about the operational efficiency, the whole idea is how can you decouple these process steps? How can you analyze them separately? And how can you make those individual steps independently? That's the whole idea. And maybe Dave, you want to touch about that a little bit, as you grow, how the operational complexity increases of each of these steps, and they all have their sort of life cycle in terms of the way they move. They require their own sort of skill set. If you are going to have expertise for each of these steps, that's when you are going to gain a lot of operational. If you are going to simply, put everything together, I think, and I don't know if this is coming from Lean. I think Lean had a lot of different concepts about segmenting the steps, if I remember correctly. Dave, I mean, if you want to touch on that a little bit.
Are you talking about the process steps there, Sam, or?
Yeah, overall separation of responsibility and optimizing them in isolation. And I don't remember the name of the guy who actually invented this. We were just talking about him the other day. He actually invented the whole concept of division of labor, the way the labor is supposed to be. And in the manufacturing organization, he talks about that, okay, you need to segment the division of labor. And if one guy is going to do pretty much everything on the manufacturing floor, you are never going to get the operational efficiency. So that's why you need to segment these process steps, optimize for the uniqueness of that step, hire the right skill, train only for that particular step. And I think they talk about this in the Japanese culture. They only do just one thing, at a time, in one operational step, and they
don't like to worry about the way their processes are designed.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of that process breakdown thought process, and you're right on with that. And I think that's where some of the to your point, some of the smaller systems, it appeals to so many because kind of to the masses because typically in smaller companies you've got you've got fewer people doing multiple process steps, multiple processes. They can be working multiple departments where you just don't have that hierarchy in place. So you look at a system like this, and Andy, even to your point about, well, it looks like it checks all the boxes, from that standpoint. And that appeals, like I said, in my opinion, to more of the masses because that is a larger segment of the market, and they already know that they've got people doing multiple things. And therefore, it kind of seems like, oh, this will be easy to bring in and kind of tackle from an implementation standpoint. How we probably can just, hammer this out ourselves. It already integrates with, some of our existing technology, those types of things. Yeah. And the reality of it is, yeah. I mean, what you guys already said, the reality of it is there's a big trade-off for that. So if you're looking for a system that can, satisfy you 5 years from now, when you've had, 10x growth, well, you're probably going to be doing at least one more implementation, versus growing into things. So it is interesting though, to see more and more of these types of solutions come up. It makes me think, and I know we've seen this with some other solutions. It makes you think, this started as, and I don't know the background of this particular solution. I'm not familiar with it. So maybe this isn't the case for this particular solution, but what I feel like I see often is a solution be created for kind of one specific use case, and then it goes to market, and it's kind of like, no, we could do everything for everybody. But it started to satisfy one relatively small company that has kind of grown over the course of time, and then they start to push it out to the market, and find that, hey, we need to market this thing to the masses before we consider ourselves an ERP platform.
Yeah, could not agree more. Great points. I guess business model is definitely a very critical point that you mentioned, Dave, there. And yes, with these solutions, they are going to be flavored for a very specific industry. And if you are going to have multiple business models as part of your processes, then you are probably going to quickly outgrow that. So that's another point that you need to keep in mind. So good one there. So if you guys don't have any other comments, I'll move forward with the slides. So here, obviously, they are trying to target the life sciences. That's how they started. Now, in the life sciences also, there are going to be many different solutions, to be honest, okay? For example, the comparable here is probably going to be Blue Link ERP. We have already reviewed that. And by the way, I mean, Blue Link ERP, the way it was designed, even though it's a very legacy technology, if you look at their screens, and I think that's what we had said during our review, that's going to be a legacy technology. It's not a new technology, even though obviously they have somehow figured out how to sort of port that over cloud. So they have that as well. But overall, from the data model, as well as from the traceability perspective, it was a very sound system. Okay, but you are not going to see the same thing here. If you look at the other comparable system in this particular space, especially if you are talking about the QuickBooks segment, which is targeted for life sciences, then the other systems are going to be DCOM. Okay, DCOM is another system which is going to be comparable to this one, which is slightly smaller. It's not as big as your Infor Epicor. So for DCOM as well, the way their data model was, the way their development was, it was very sound. It's not really designed for those multi-entity workload, even though they are going to claim that I am also designed for multi-entity. But the way their multi-entity functionality was, it's just a hack. It's not a real multi-entity functionality. But if you look at their data model, especially from the pharma workload perspective, they had decent capability. They had complete traceability that you are not going to find in this particular solution, and that's what we are going to touch when we review the specific screens, the specific data fields where they are going to run into challenges. This is going to be slightly similar to Catena, and Dave, I believe you missed that. Catena MRP, even though they are calling themselves as ERP, but they had real issue overall the way their data was embedded as part of their MRP. So they had the items model, but it was a very lean data model overall, the way their data was modeled. So obviously, you are not going to have all those 9 layers of costing, okay? Even if you can get 1 layer, that's probably a lot.
Katana makes a really good Japanese sword, though.
Uh, how many layers do you need in the Japanese sword?
Well, they got to be at
Andy?
least 100. It's
At least 100, right?
yeah.
And that's how those ERP systems are, to be honest. Okay, they are really welded together. At least 100 layers that
Just watch
nobody
Kill
can
Bill
understand.
and you'll learn all about it.
Good joke, Andy. Good joke. So here, moving right along. So here they are saying manufacturing, sales, inventory, purchase, financial management functions with QT9 ERP. And again, everybody is going to have very, very, very similar, vernacular or the language. So it becomes very confusing for your customers. Here now they are talking about some very heavy hitter pieces of functionality which is going to through your audit. Okay, we are talking about design history record. Okay, this is a serious stuff, guys. Okay, and by the way, I have to commend these guys started, and I believe they started as the documentation management system. Now documentation management system is a very different piece of functionality. Quality management system, and Dave, you are going to love this, the way their quality module is designed. In fact, if you look at the reviews as of today, the majority of them are really because of their quality management solution. In fact, they have sold their quality management solution to very, very, very large accounts. So I'm pretty sure they are probably selling their quality management module as of today separately than their ERP. And then they probably thought that, okay, I'm selling quality management. Now let's create an ERP as well. So maybe that's how they grew.
It's the next logical step.
Right? Exactly. So that's probably how they started. So they are really strong at the quality management piece of the functionality that does not require the same embedding of your finance capabilities that you are going to need in the core transactional, core operational, core ERP capability. So that's where the real difference. And we'll talk about some of the workflows. Some of these workflows that you are going to find in your QT9 solution, it will be very hard to implement those even in the ERP systems that are going to be designed for manufacturing. Can you believe this? Okay, so you are going to buy Epicors of the world, Enforce of the world, and then you are going to be expecting that, okay, I am looking for this specific document management workflow that those systems don't do, but my QT9 is able to support that. So now you are probably going to conclude that, you know what, QT9 is probably a superior system. That's not true at all. Okay, they are able to support that specific technical workflow of the quality management that's much easier to implement than your financial workflow, and that is the reason why they are able to do that. We'll touch on that when we review the screen, but I just wanted you guys to remember that point. So here we are talking about design history record, electronic batch records for life sciences. Now we are talking about some really big things. Okay, and by the way, MEG, these guys actually go through audit as well, and audit and companies are able to pass the audit, and we have seen this as well. In general, the auditors, they are not going to have as much technical background. The way they are they are doing the audit, they are doing the audit the way a customer is going to buy an ERP system, by looking at a bunch of functional checklists. The question is, I don't know, whether anybody should be questioning the quality of these audits, but in general, these guys don't really understand the technicalities of the system, and they don't really understand how traceable the system really is. If they had the technical background, then they would be able to know. But in general, what typically they do is, depending upon how fast can you produce the report, okay, that is going to be their red flag. That's how they approve the audit. Okay, so if you are able to sort of get the report, in this case, obviously you are going to be putting a lot of manual effort for the audit to establish all of those traceability, and we are going to review that in the comments as well, that some users reported how much work they need to put in for those audits. But again, you will pass the audit because the auditors don't really have as much information about these systems, and that's why they are able to approve that. So here, a couple of points to note overall. We are talking about the QuickBooks integration. We are talking about Sage50 integration. So this is one way of validating which ecosystem they are hanging out. So obviously they are sort of the add-on for the QuickBooks, and Sage50, they are not part of any of the main ERP system. So that's your validation that they are really an add-on. It's not a real ERP system.
Well, it'd be interesting to know their demographics. Like you say, it says QuickBooks and Sage50 integration. but it also includes its own accounting system. So I wonder how many of their customers use their internal one versus just an add-on to the small accounting system.
And even if they had the internal accounting platform, Andy, it does not mean that it is tightly embedded and tightly integrated. And tightly could mean a lot of different things. Okay, some people might like to sell tightly, meaning one field integration, or you have the real parent-child hierarchy very deeply embedded. So again, when salespeople talk, that's a different thing versus how implementation is going. So here, even if they have their accounting system, it doesn't mean that they have the real ERP capabilities. The real ERP capabilities is going to be in providing those layers, the business rules, the 9 layers of costing, or maybe 18 layers of costing. That's where you get the traceability. That's where you get the data entry efficiency that you are not going to get here. So here, let's move on. So now this is coming, and I always like to call out any sort of public statement, whether you can trust those websites or not. So here we have our friends at Technology Evaluation Center, also called TEC, and they have compared, and this is the statement coming from their website, and they are saying the comparison for QT9 is ACNU, Acumatica, as well as Sage X3. Now, Sage X3 is a very, very, very large and complex system. Okay, it is not supposed to be comparable for this one. If they had said, let's say, DCOM, that would be the comparable for this one. Even Acumatica has a lot of layers. Even Acumatica has a lot of different layers that this system is not going to have. So I don't think it is a fair comparison, but maybe they are competing with the companies when they are going into the deals, and that's the reason why Tech has listed them as their competitor. But their right competitors, in my mind, is going to be, if you look at the life sciences, then BlueLink ERP is probably the right comparison. Again, BlueLink ERP had far deeper data integrity, tight integration of the data sets, even though the technology may be slightly legacy, but it had all the bells and whistles that a medical device company or a pharma company should.
Well, from a very high level, I mean, Acumatica, I'm told, does a pretty good job regarding process manufacturing, which kind of blends itself to the life sciences. And Sage X3 has always been targeted at that marketplace, but I don't think they're talking about size of company. I think they're talking about specifically the industry they're targeting.
So again, when you say comparison, how the customers are going to read. So they are going to read it as...
I get it. I get it.
Right. So, and by the way, just on that comment, that Acumatica does not really have the native process manufacturing functionality. They use an add-on. It's not necessarily targeted for process manufacturing.
Isn't it the same people who made Batchmaster, though, or something like that?
Yeah, so they own the add-on. So it's not Acumatica owned as such.
Oh, it's
obviously,
a third party.
Acumatica has a very vibrant market. Acumatica would require an add-on if they want to sell it into the process manufacturing space. The Acumatica native bombs will not be able to support the formulation, the quality processes. Acumatica does not have all of that natively. It's just that you are going to require add-ons, which is not a bad thing always.
Not always. Sometimes it can be. Sometimes it works great.
Yeah. Depending upon the quality of add-on, depending upon how tight the integration is.
Quality integration. Yeah.
Okay, so now this is where the rubber meets the road, okay? So let's talk about traceability. And especially when you look at these systems, and this is where the comparison needs to be the way you should be evaluating the ERP system. So for example, let's say if you pay attention to how their job names are named, okay? So you would notice that they have the SO number, they have the customer PO number, they have the part numbers in the name. And that's a huge red flag. And the reason why these guys are doing that, to be honest, I mean, the problem is not necessarily with the platform itself. The kind of customers that are going to be there in this space, they don't necessarily understand how to model their document, how to model the traceability, how to model their items, how to model their bombs. Okay, so for them, if they are going to be implementing Acumatica or N4, it's going to be humongous learning curve. Okay, so they prefer a system that is going to be Excel sheet like, and that's where these systems do a wonderful job in sitting on top of QuickBooks, where you don't have to model your items, you don't have to model your jobs. I mean, you are never going to get your job costing right. Okay, but that's okay, because you don't have the implementation dollars for the system. You cannot afford the consultants or the CFOs or the controller or the operations manager as of today. So this is a great solution for you until you reach to a point where you are going to care for the real traceability. Okay, this is obviously not traceable because what you are doing is you are tracing based on a text string. Can you believe this? Okay,
Based on a which, Sam?
text string. So they are literally parsing a lot of this information from the text, and this is how a lot of customers that are going to be in the QuickBooks space manage their operations. The way they are going to do it is they are going to have a lot of things in the description. Pay attention to the description, guys. Okay, if they have 50 different fields mapped as part of the string, that means they are struggling with traceability. They don't have real data modeling behind the ERP system. They have to put a lot of intelligence in the text field to enable reporting, to enable traceability. That's the reason why these guys are doing that. So this is where you can identify how weak the modeling is going to be in this system. So this system is not necessarily traceable, but auditors, they don't really have technical background to figure this out.
Interesting comment, because if you look at the job name, it says Franklin Part and then customer sales order number, 40, cost, bill of material, cost, part, etc., etc. So it must be an intelligent part number of some level, right?
Sure, even intelligent could be degree of intelligence, I guess.
Sure, no, I understand, but a person using this would look at that job name and know what it is.
Well, so they are making a lot of decisions based on the tags that they have at the job name level, because the sales order is not necessarily linked to your PO. The PO may not be linked to your part may not be linked to your job. So, you are going to have a lot of challenges from the traceability. I mean, they'll be able to do the job. Everybody is doing job somehow. Okay, but the question is how much you are doing it in the spreadsheet and how much the system is doing it for yourself. And that's where your financial control is going to be. That's where your traceability is going to be. That's where how much data entry is going to be required, how much admin effort is going to be required, and are you getting the real business value from the system? That's the question here. And by the way, you will also see duplication. So for example, you have the job number, you have the part number, you have the job name. Typically, I would not see these three things at the same time on the same sort of field, because once you have one, then you would be able to figure out the other. But here we have multiple fields. Again, it could be the layout, but these are some of the red flags that you should be paying attention to. You should be digging more. If you are not able to see a real screen for the item, an item linking to your job, and job has different versions, that means they don't really have the. You should also be paying attention to the business objects and the data model. How is the data model designed? Okay, data model is where the truth is with ERP systems. Data model drives everything. Data model drives how efficient your operations are going to be, how much over engineering you are going to require from the ERP perspective. Okay, what value you are going to get from your ERP system. Data model is where the truth is with ERP. So here, I think we spoke about the job name. Okay, now you are going to have some very interesting things here. Okay, so this is their bill of material. Now you can only find out so many different things. When you look at the bill of material of different systems, they will appear alike. Okay, so it's very hard to figure out, okay, which system is going to be better at bill of material. So here the model is going to be very lean. So the only thing you are looking at is the setup time, cycle time. You don't even have runtime. Typically, you would require that. The larger ERP system are going to have at least 20 different layers of different times you can report. How you can report the time. The more you are going to grow your operations, you are going to need these things when you are going to have, let's say, the multiple operators operating on a machine doing multiple jobs. That's when your reporting is going to be really handy in having all of those layers. But pay attention to the text that they need to mention. So here they are providing the instructions. You need to add 25 milliliter of this solution and 5 milligram of this powder, mix for 20 minutes. Okay, the reason why they have to do this is because they cannot model this process as part of the data model. When they cannot do that, you cannot build the quality step because this is text. You cannot do anything. This is not intelligent. Okay, so that's where the lean part of the data model is. So pay attention to how they are capturing their data elements and how much text is being captured and what is being captured inside the text, how their unit of measures are being captured and what is captured inside that. So pay attention to all of it. But overall, if you look at their bombs, they are going to be really lean. Any comments, guys?
Sam, it's interesting. I completely agree with where you're going with this. So the one thing that jumped into my mind is, if they have such a complex quality module, I'm really kind of surprised to see that the kind of closed loop that you would necessarily expect. I mean, I kind of get it from a size of system perspective, right, in the data modeling that you already mentioned. But if they have a pretty well thought out quality module, it is kind of surprising that some of the loops like this, like the information from a material and routing standpoint wouldn't that there wouldn't be more tightly that it wouldn't be more tightly controlled or have more flexibility in terms of inputs, and that things would be relying on text input to to transfer this information per job. So it's just kind of interesting to me that if what I mean, it doesn't fit, right? Like that's what I'm struggling with. It doesn't fit. So
exactly, and the kind of mindset these organizations are going to take. And Dave, you have been there. You have probably been part of a lot of different audits from the quality perspective, and you know how audits work, right? You are only preparing for the questions that are going to be part of the exam. That's how audits work. Okay.
Yeah.
So you are trying to showcase what the auditors are going to care for. And typically they are looking at the document management system, how well maintained your document system is, because an average quality auditor, they are not going to have as much background in the data correlations, how the data is being published in your documentation system. So that's where the real gap is. So obviously, when you look at the documentation management system, it's going to look so fancy and they are going to approve it.
Got it. Yeah. No, I agree with that. I mean, and you see it in all types of audits, to your point. I mean, even outside of, typical quality audits, I was working with a company not too long ago, and they were due for an audit for one of their certifications. And I was pretty blown away to see that they got glowing reviews on their last audit, even though when you start to dig into the actual documentation, there's, every section was accounted for, but when you dig into the process behind it, the actual to your point, the actual underlying information, I mean, it was non-existent, and it didn't take a real bright person like i.e. I was able to figure it out. So it's incredible, though, to your point, where you're paying in some cases a significant amount of money to have these different types of audits performed, whether they're internal or external. And people are literally just kind of checking the box and it being very surface level. So, if you're a company out there that's evaluating these types of things, these are the types of questions and considerations you should be making for sure.
Yeah. And guys, I want to highlight one point. I mean, when you prepare for an exam, an audit is an exam. An exam is supposed to teach you the skills. Okay. If you learn these skills, then obviously you'll go along. But if your goal is just to hack the exam, I don't know how long you are going to go. Okay. So always understand the intent of the exam, even if you don't do well in the exam, but you have figured out the intent behind the exam and you have incorporated that as part of your process, that's where you are going to become really efficient, because the whole goal of audit is to make you operationally efficient, to avoid any sort of legal risk or the financial risk or the operational risk or the safety risk for your company. That's what they are trying to prevent. But if you are just, checking a tick mark, I guess, for the audit, then okay, good luck with that. Okay, here, by the way, you don't want me to be performing your audit. I don't know if I'm qualified for that or not. So here we have the item name, and item name, you can see some of the text here. So now they have embedded the intelligence as part of the text again, because they don't have that unit of measure modeling as part of the data model. When you are not going to have that, your inventory is going to be all over the place. So they don't really have the real traceability as part of the solution built, but they are selling in the medical device and pharma, which is just mind-blowing. Okay, now when you look at the real document workflow and the engineering change notification, And when you look at the requirements for the audit, to be honest, okay, you are going to see these things very well spelled out. How the engineering change process needs to be modeled as part of your organization. They are literally going to have the step that as part of your ECN, you should be able to create a request. A request should go to an approver. A approver must be approving. So you are doing everything procedural, but you are not going after the intent of the audit. So that's why the whole ECN process is probably superior than your SAP, to be honest. Okay, the way it is modeled. So here you are going to have the ECN request, and this is probably the best workflow that I have seen from the ECN perspective. And ECN creates a document. This is one of the best quality system that I've seen so far. And the document request is going to be the child of the ECN. So each ECN is going to have a document workflow that it needs to go through. So you have the whole e-signature hierarchy that they are trying to mandate, because they need to make sure that the person who is actually signing is being accountable for that specific process. That's how deep it gets in the pharma and med device space. Even if you are, let's say, printing a PowerPoint, that is also controlled. Can you believe? So they have all of this, and everything is so serious in medical device space. But for some reason, companies are not paying attention to how the data model is designed. So here, some of the reviews. So here we have the reviews coming from the medical device company, 11 to 50 employees. Jennifer is the reviewer. So here, Jennifer is saying, Jennifer would benefit from improving is the ability to create both corrective action and non-conformance records from a customer complaint. So even the customer complaint itself has a workflow. Customer reps typically create a lot of different records as part of your customer complaint. If you are going to look at, even Acumatica or Infor, there are going to be at least 10 different objects that you can create, and she is talking about only 2. So obviously, the user would not know why the traceability is not there, or why user is not able to create these actions on top of the documents such as your customer complaint. But the reason why they are not able to do it is because they have flattened their data model significantly, because they were in the QuickBooks space, and now if they are trying to scale all of these steps, it's not going to scale because your foundational data model is weak. So that's why she is struggling, but they don't have that. And they'll figure out some sort of hack there in producing that. But again, they'll miss something else, I guess. Currently, the software only allows the creation of one or the other, but not both. However, all records between complaints, corrective actions, and non-conformance are linked through the daisy chain scenario. As part of the daisy chain scenario, your complaints, corrective actions, and non-conformance, they need to be linked. So somehow these guys have figured out how to link them. But when I talk about the traceability, this is the traceability that I'm talking about. Every single business document and object in a real ERP system is traceable as well as connected. That's the traceability. That traceability is going to be lost here because they don't have that supported as part of the data model. Andy, Dave, any comments?
Nope.
Okay, so now Jennifer also felt, and again, Jennifer is not probably going to be technical here, so she's saying it can be awkward when retrieving records during an audit.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Because you don't have the real traceability. There are some, yeah, go ahead, Andy.
I was going to say paper-based manual QMS system, so there's not really even a quality system at all.
No, they are definitely quality system, Andy. I don't know where you're reading that.
It has allowed us to move from a paper-based.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, they are very strong QMS system, no question.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's all kinds of ISO certification, 21 CFR Part 11 at the bottom, or 21 CFR 211-210 and 820.
Yeah, they are doing fairly serious stuff, I'm telling you. Yeah. Super serious stuff.
Yeah. Perfect for FDA.
Exactly.
And medical device.
Exactly. I wish there was a compliance, which ERP system they used to test on the medical device, to be honest. I would like to know that. So here, the calibration module was the most difficult for us to implement as it operated a little differently. So that's the learning issue, I guess. That's really, and again, this is the simplest ERP system that you can find, to be honest. This is difficult, and this is the problem with the customer, to be honest. I don't think the platforms can be blamed just because they don't have as deep experience with data modeling, and obviously they don't have budget for consulting either, and that's why there's a real gap, and that's where these solutions really fit in. The ability to easily manage our document control, auditing, non-conformances, corrective actions, preventive actions, complaints and calibrations in one location. All of those are really part of your quality module, to be honest. All of these feature sets, the more linking you are going to have, it gets fairly deep the way the linking for those. So they are going to have really deep linking for each of these objects, but not for the ERP data object. Paper-based manual electronic system consumption record storage. I don't have anything there. Yeah, everybody's sort of buying this for the regulatory audit. Otherwise, they would manage probably on paper. It's helping them with the audit, and that's why they are buying. One more review. This is coming from aviation, aerospace. Very similar requirements, fairly serious. 200 to 500 employees.
Pretty good sized company.
Yeah. 1+ year, but I can almost guarantee that this is probably they used it for QMS, not really for the ERP. So here, to be honest, we do not use all the modules within QT9, but the ones we do use allow us to get by and pass our QMS audits. For the power user like myself that wants to extract detailed performance data, you will have to extract the data and pull it into Excel and manipulate it to get metrics. You need what you see is what you get, no customizations whatsoever. Again, this is really an app. It's not supposed to be an ERP system, but they are selling it as the ERP system. No overdue notifications or escalations. Again, whatever you have, that's what you get. Obviously, they have very complex quality requirements. Some of these quality requirements may not be there even with the larger ERP systems. So you need to use a dedicated quality module such as your QT9, to be honest, okay? Because QT9 is supposed to be a QMS system with a real ERP system. Maybe that could be a direction that you want to take.
Okay, so it can be a standalone quality system or possibly API into another ERP.
That would be my understanding. I think they started as QMS and then developed the whole idea of this solution was really to be the QMS, but the way QuickBooks works, as we know, you can create whatever you want on top of QuickBooks because there is no sort of financial control there. That's why these guys are able to create a lot more in general. So here, if you have more than one process approver and one of them approves the action, the other approver cannot go back and make changes. You are logged out. I think that's the problem with the user. That is the compliance process, in my opinion. I think as part of the compliance processes, only one user can check out at any point of time so that they can maintain the version who has made what change. You have the complete traceability. So this is really a training issue here, not really the system issue. And the other approver approved the risk and I could not make any changes. No customizability, I think that's what or he meant to say, and forms, lots of tabs on the non-conforming product and corrective action forms, and you cannot get rid of those tabs you need. So even the tabs that you don't need, you cannot simply hide them. That should be very easy process. In most ERP systems, you cannot even hide the tabs. Absolutely no customization, no filtering of overdue items. In Pareto analysis, you can filter open items, closed, rejected, submitted, and deleted, but nothing to tell you if an item is past due. No email notifications if an item goes past due. So a lot of problems there overall from the data traceability perspective. This is coming from information technology and services. Unable to perform text searches. Okay, so this is another problem that you are going to get. You are not able to perform the searches because your fields are not indexable. When you are going to dump the intelligence inside your description field, your searchability is lost. You don't have traceability, you don't have searchability. And that's why she is not able to perform. Your search is going to be extremely weak, and search defines how quick your operations are going to be. So your data entry is going to be slower, your search is going to be slower. So I don't know what benefit you are really getting from these ERP systems except your audit.
Well, the list of functionality on the previous screens certainly implies a lot of stuff, but
yeah, that's what it implies. I mean,
marketing is a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Marketing is a wonderful. You said it right.
Great QMS for a small company.
Exactly. So here we are looking at mid-market, 51 to 2,000 employees. To be honest, QuickBooks is not necessarily designed for such market segment. It cannot support the transactional workload. It should not be used in that market segment, but seems like they have used it. Okay, and they have used it in 2022. You can only have one module open at a time. Unlike ERP system, you are going to have all of these issues. You will not be able to explain why. The reason, again, data model. It can be a little frustrating if you want to reference a control document, but you have to close out of the record. You are working into open doc control. Again, a lot of different one-to-one scenarios and the traceability. So that's it, guys. You guys have any comments? I have some comments which I'll open up. Go ahead, Andy, Dave.
So Andrew's jumping in with marketing likes their ERPs like they like their bagels with everything. So
exactly.
I tend to agree with that after seeing this. His next comment, though, I'm not sure if you were able to find this or not, Sam, but regarding that review that was stating limited flexibility and specifically the con of cannot customize which tabs are shown. Can you speak to whether this product has role-based access or what the security is? If you can't disable anything, is there any fine-grained access control?
Interesting comment. And depending upon what you mean by security, okay, and what you mean by the control data access. If you are going to have two different ledgers, your accounting is going to be completely different from your quality and operation ledger. You are breaking the rules right there. If you had just one system and you had the complete traceability end to end, then it's a different case. But again, depending upon what architecture you want to build and how your data access is being transferred to different systems and what is going to be requirement from the audit and the regulatory body perspective, what they care for. So again, for the most part, if you look at any of the ERP systems, they are going to have that fine-grained access as part of the same system, for most of the finance and operations workflow, but that might not work for every business. Dave, over to you, whatever follow-up you want.
Yeah, no, one of the things that kind of struck me about going through this, with the, again, kind of seemingly that the reviews are talking about the quality management module and all of that, it struck me odd that the kind of initial marketing, that first slide that we saw, that initial marketing piece didn't really touch on the quality at all. So when I was doing just a bit of background on it, it looks like they've kind of segregated that out. So they have like 3 different websites that they're marketing. They've got their, kind of document control business, they've got their QMS business, and then they've got, this ERP platform business. All of them obviously having some overlap, but I did think that was interesting. I think we talk about it often, but and it's a lesson to be applied to many businesses, even outside of ERP solutions. But know your lane, stick in your lane, grow in your lane. It's interesting to see so many solutions try to be so many things to so many people. And if you're really amazing at QMS in this case, stick with it, continue to iterate on that and answer some of what the users are requesting. So it's interesting. I'd like to see some more, deep functionality on the QMS side of things, even though I know, this is an ERP focused show. So.
Yeah, great points.
QMS is all part of ERP. Supposed to be.
Sorry, Andy, more comments?
I mentioned that I ran across this QT9. Well, it's an interesting name. A month or two back, and the first time I ever came across it. But when I did the research, it came across as basically designed for a long run, make to stock type manufacturers, not product type manufacturers, not custom, not change the same thing over and over again. And targeting life sciences then totally makes sense.
Yeah. Dave, more comments?
No, not really. Like I said, it's interesting. Another interesting solution to see the difference of how they're positioning versus where it seems to fit. It'd be great to find some more information out about, I think to your point earlier, Sam, about how companies are really utilizing this. I don't see companies that are heavily relying on the QMS to be integrating with QuickBooks or Sage50. I mean, those companies don't seem to fit that model. So again, for me, this one kind of lands a bit in a weird place. With the information provided, I wasn't able to find much history on this solution either. I don't know if either of you were able to find much history on it, but I think that might shed some light on how it's gotten to be where it is today.
And I'll tell you a little bit about the market landscape in terms of how other companies operate, to be honest. Okay, they are always going to have a dedicated QMS, even if they have slightly superior ERP system underneath. And that's how these guys must have started that. Okay, they were sitting on top of your Sage50 as well as QuickBooks. But even if you look at Infor Epicor, they might have their own QMS system, but the QMS system may not be as robust, or it's going to require a lot more configuration in general. So what companies might do is they might get slightly simpler document management system as well as the quality management system, because they have to go through the audit. Or sometimes, there's going to be a speed factor because the investors are going to have milestones and they need to move fast. And it might take forever to learn slightly more complex systems, right? So they'll get a quality system completely siloed, document management system completely siloed. They might not worry about the actual ERP operations or the financial operations, and they'll try to pass the audit using that. And after that, they'll figure out the ERP if they pass the audit, because you need to pass the audit, you need to go through FDA, you need to sell your devices, and then you are going to get money.
And then you're going to have to be certified again next year.
Exactly.
In the whole cycle of life.
I was just going to say, and then repeat the cycle.
That's right. Rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's where the QMS is always slightly more standalone in general, because you are probably going to run out of options. Even if you're buying slightly bigger ERP systems, you'll probably require a specialized QMS system for your documentation management needs. And again, documentation management is a different process in that you don't have to involve the actual ERP processes. But when you look at the actual ERP operational workflow, that's where your ERP is. Two different things in general. Okay, any other comments, guys, before I close? No? All right, guys, that's it for today. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We are going to come back with another solution. On that note, thanks everyone for tuning in tonight.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day, Sam.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Dave Chrysler, head over to thechrysler.club. It's THECRYSLER.CLUB. If you want to learn more about Andy Pratico, head over to essoft.com. It's ESSOFT.com. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.